This is the story of Blanca and the wild man. Blanca was a beautiful girl, but very strange. She had eyes that were somewhere between the color of green and yellow, and long, blonde hair that ran all the way down her back in curled ringlets, in a village where everyone else's hair was dark. She was also a very strange person. She didn't have many friends. Whenever someone would try to approach her, she would either answer them in such a way that it just made no sense, or she would answer them in a way that was so honest that they wished they had never approached her in the first place. Now, then there was the wild man. He was just a story. Or was he? I mean, everybody's cousin had a friend who had spotted him, as everyone's cousin's friends often do. Now, the wild man lived up in a magical treehouse, and it was said that he had the feet of a deer, the body of a hairy ape, and the eyes of a jaguar, and that he would kidnap girls to go live with him in his magical treehouse. Now, no one's cousin's friend had ever known somebody who was kidnapped, but everybody's grandmother did. The summer when Blanca was to turn 16 was a very hot summer. The air was still in a strange and ominous way. Her grandmother decided one day to take all the children of the village down to the swimming hole. The boys rushed ahead, the girls followed in a clump behind, and Blanca trailed at the end all by herself. The boys were pretending to fight with sticks and glancing back behind them to make sure that the girls were watching. The girls were giggling and holding hands and pointing at whatever boy they thought, would be the bravest one day, would be the strongest, would be the cutest. And Blanca listened for rustles of the leaves, for breaks in the stillness of the air. At one point, she thought she heard a deer following her, but when she looked behind her, she saw nothing. When they got to the swimming hole, the boys jumped in, making a huge splash, splashing some of the girls who were sitting on the edge on a flat rock, making sure that their toes were in, but the boys were watching. While Blanca found a nice rock underneath a tree and lay down to take a nap. As her eyes began to close, she thought she felt eyes on her from the tree line. Through the lids of her eyes, she thought she saw a jaguar. But when she opened her eyes, there was nothing there. Blanca fell asleep, and when her grandmother rustled her to get them to go home, she found in her hair the flower of the bucari tree. Blanca became even stranger after this day. When people would approach her, she would act like she didn't even hear them sometimes. And her grandmother decided that she had been bewitched by the wild man. But when she asked Blanca, Blanca said, "Oh, grandmother, don't you know that the wild man doesn't exist? He's just a story. Are you so silly that you believe a story?" She said nothing after that. On the morning of Blanca's 16th birthday, she was nowhere to be found. People searched the village for her, thinking she had gone off on a strange walk. They searched down to the swimming hole. There wasn't even a sign of her. People realized that Blanca had been stolen away by the wild man. Now that was for certain. But what was never certain was whether the wild man was keeping Blanca prisoner up in his magic treehouse, refusing to let her back down, or if Blanca was simply so happy up there that she had decided never to return. That's the story of Blanca and the Wild Man, and it comes from Venezuela.